Hey class, we're going to finish off this lesson by doing some Xbox problems together. This worksheet calls them X problems. Sometimes you'll hear them referred to as diamond problems, but in the end they're all the same thing. Now before we get started into this lesson, make sure you print out X problems 2 and X problems 3 because these are the two worksheets that we're going to be working on together. So if you haven't printed those out yet, please pause the video and get that done now. So we're going to go right into X problems, the first X problems 2, right, this page here. And so we're going to go right into the problems. So if you look at these X's carefully, right, you'll notice that in the top compartment there's a dot and on the bottom compartment there's a plus sign. And so that's going to tell you what operation you should be doing with the two numbers here on the side. So when you see 2 and 9, right, and there's a dot symbol on top, what they want you to do is they want you to multiply 2 and 9. And when you multiply 2 and 9, you get 18. And so that's the number that we're going to put up here. And on the bottom compartment, there's a plus sign. And so what they want you to do here is they want you to add 2 and 9. So when you add the two numbers on the side, you'll get 11. And that's your first box problem. Let's look at number 2. So for number 2, again, it's going to be kind of similar, right? Here, you want to take negative 3 and 4. And so the top number is what you get when you multiply negative 3 and 4, right? So negative 3 times positive 4 would be negative 12. So that goes on top. On the bottom compartment, you want to add the two numbers together. Negative 3 plus 4 is positive 1. And that's it for number 2. Number 3, same deal, right? We're going to do negative 6 times 3. And you put the product on top. And you're going to now add them together. And when you add up negative 6 and positive 3, you put that number on the bottom and you should get negative 3. So far, we just completed 3 Xbox problems. All we're going to do is we take the numbers on the sides, and when you multiply them, that's the number that goes on top. And when you add the two numbers on the sides, that's the number that you get on the bottom, right? So that's what that dot means. You want to multiply. That plus sign means you're just adding up the numbers. So just like we did last time, when your video says your turn, what I want you to do is I want you to pause the video, and I want you to try numbers 4, 5, and 6 on your own. And after you think you're done, I want you to press play. So from here, you have negative 5 and negative 5. Hopefully you multiply them together and you got positive 25. And when you added these together, you got negative 10. For number 5 here, we're going to multiply 3 times negative 4. You should have gotten negative 12. And when you add up 3 and negative 4, you should have gotten negative 1. And lastly, for number 6, when you multiply negative 2 times negative 7, always remember a negative times a negative is positive. So here we should get positive 14. When you add up negative 2 and negative 7, you should get negative 9. Hopefully you guys got 3 out of 3 there correct. And if you did not a big deal. Just be very careful with those negatives because you have to be very comfortable with adding and multiplying integers. Let's look at 7, 8, and 9 together. So if you notice here, it's a little bit different now, right? Because when you look at these Xbox problems, what you notice now is that they gave you the product and they gave you the sum of the two numbers, but we need to figure out what two numbers go here. And so a lot of times what you can do is make a little list on the side and kind of just figure out which ones will work. So when I think of two numbers that multiply to 30, I think of 2 and 15. But the problem is when I add up the two numbers, I don't get 13, so I know that doesn't work. I'm going to try 5 and 6 next. I know 5 times 6 is 30, but the problem is 5 plus 6 is 11, not 13, so I know that doesn't work. It looks like 3 and 10 will work, right? 3 times 10 is 30, 3 plus 10 is 13, so I know that those are the two numbers that I am looking for. So if you notice, when you're doing these kind of problems, you're going to have to guess and check sometimes, and you might not get it right on the first go, or even the second go. But don't give up. Just keep trying numbers carefully and working them out. Let's look at number 8. So here we're thinking of two numbers that when you multiply gives me 15. And when you add them up gives me 3. This one's kind of nice because I feel like 5 and 3 are the two numbers that most of us will think of. 5 times 3 is 15 and 5 plus 3 is 8. Now for number 9, here we want to think of two numbers that multiply to negative 12 and add up to 4. So this is where you have to be very careful. A lot of times what I like to do is I like to list out all the numbers that multiply to 12. 2 and 6, 1 and 12, 3 and 4. And then from there, I understand that if I multiply two numbers and I get a negative number, I know one of the numbers has to be positive and one has to be negative. And then you also have to keep in mind that when you add up the two numbers, you want to make sure you add up to 4. So a lot of times you're going to kind of just guess and check, right? But it looks like 2 and 6 would be the combination that works. In this case, you want 2 to be the negative and you want the 6 to be the positive number. Because negative 2 times 6 is negative 12. Negative 2 plus 6 is 4. So if you notice, again, you have to do quite a bit of guessing and checking, right? So don't get discouraged if you don't get these right away. But hopefully with practice, you'll get faster and you'll get more efficient at these problems, okay? So just like we did before, I want you to pause the video and try 10 through 12 on your own. So for number 10 here, you want to think of two numbers that multiply to 24 and add up to negative 10. If you put negative 4 and negative 6, you did a good job. Number 11, here you have to be very careful because the numbers are almost, they're pretty much the same numbers here, except instead of 24, we have negative 24. It's very tempting just to say 4 and 6, but it doesn't work out that way because it wouldn't add up to negative 10. In this case, if you chose one of the numbers to be negative 12 and the other number to be positive 2, you would be correct. If you put 2 here and negative 12 here, that is still correct, right? It doesn't matter the order in which you put these two numbers. Obviously, the order here does matter though, right? For number 12, can you think of two numbers that multiply to negative 27 and add up to 6? If you chose 9 and negative 3, then you are definitely correct. See how you did on 10 through 12. Make sure you're okay with multiplying and adding integers, right? Those pluses and minuses, there's a lot going on, so we have to be very careful here. We're going to look at this last page now, and once we're done with these 9 problems, we're pretty much done for this lesson. So again, I want just to keep practicing this. So I'm going to do number 1 out loud, and feel free to just work it out on your own if you like. So here, think of two numbers that multiply to 20 and add up to negative 9. In this case, I know that both numbers are going to be negative because I want the product to be a positive number and I want the sum to be negative. So here I'm going to put negatives on both positions. And then thinking of the two numbers, I believe negative 5 and negative 4 should work, right? Negative 5 times negative 4 is a positive 20, and negative 5 plus negative 4 is negative 9. I'm going to do number 2 as well. For number 2, I'm thinking of two numbers that multiply to 26 and add up to 15. Here, it looks like 2 and 13 will be the magical numbers, right? 2 times 13 is 26, and 2 plus 13 is 15. For number 3, think of two numbers that multiply to negative 7 and add up to 6. Here, we have to be kind of careful because this one's a little bit tricky. I think the numbers should be 7 and negative 1, though. If you multiply 7 and negative 1, you do get negative 7. If you add 7 and negative 1, you get negative 6. Hopefully you're getting the hang of these Xbox problems because once again, we're going to be using these a lot in the future. And so I want us to be very comfortable with solving these X problems, okay? So at this point, what I want you guys to do is pause the video and try 4 through 9 on your own. Okay, so let's see how you guys did on 4 through 9. So for number 4, the two numbers that multiply to negative 33 and add up to negative 8, I believe that should be negative 11 and positive 3. Again, make sure you see how that works, right? For number 5, when you want to think of two numbers that multiply to 60 and add up to 19, I believe the two numbers there should be 15 and 4. So sometimes these numbers are getting kind of big, and so if you didn't get this right away, that's okay. You might have created like a list of numbers on the side that give me 60 and just kind of try them out and see which one works. For number 6 here, the product of two numbers that gives me negative 24 and the sum of 5, I believe would be 8 and negative 3. For number 7, two numbers that multiply to negative 30 and add up to negative 1. If you put negative 6 and positive 5, then you're on the right track, so good job. For number 8, two numbers that multiply to negative 40 add up to negative 3. You should have got to negative 8 and positive 5. And for the last example, what two numbers multiply to 77 and add up to negative 18? You should have got to negative 11 and negative 7, right? Again, if you check carefully, those two numbers, when you multiply them, gives me positive 77. And when you add these up, you get negative 18. So these are the Xbox problems, right? Make sure you get very comfortable with these. And if you have any questions, please leave a comment or please message me. Have a great day, guys.